The note sits between them on the stainless steel counter, her handwriting sharp and accusing. You're lying. Abigail doesn't move, don't look away, just stands there in the empty kitchen with flour still dusting her forearms, waiting for J1 to prove her wrong. The overhead lights hum, the ovens tick as they cool. He stares at the paper like it's evidence in a trial he's already lost. "Say something," she says, her voice catching in a way that makes him flinch. She doesn't use her voice often. Doesn't need to. Doesn't like how it sounds. Is too aware of the frequencies she can't hear. But right now, she uses it because she wants him to feel the weight of it. Write it or say it, I don't care which, but don't just stand there. He picks up the pen. Put it down. Pick it up again. I can't. She lets out a breath that's almost a laugh, bitter and sharp. Can't or won't? Same thing. No. She slaps her hand on the counter and a cloud of flour rises between them. No, it's not the same thing. Can't mean you don't know how. Won't mean you're choosing not to. Which is it? He looks at her then, really looks at her, and something in his face cracks so suddenly she almost steps back. His hand moves across the page, fast and graceless. Nothing like his usual precision. I saw the offer. London. I saw it. And I didn't know how to ask you to stay without sounding like I had the right to ask. She freezes. The air goes out of the room. How long have you known? 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Her voice goes quiet. Dangerous. You've been shutting me out for 2 weeks because you saw an email you weren't supposed to see and decided, what? That I'd already made up my mind? That I wasn't worth a conversation? That I wasn't worth staying for? The words sit there between them like something broken. And then Minji's voice cuts through from the doorway, small and horrified. Oh, I didn't. I'll come back. But Abigail's already grabbing her jacket, already walking toward the door. J1 takes one step after her and stops, his hand half raised like he's reaching for something he has no idea how to hold. She doesn't look back. 12 weeks earlier, Abigail stepped off the train into Seoul with one large suitcase, a carry-on bag, and the particular kind of lightness that comes from leaving everything familiar behind on purpose. Yet the station pulsed with movement, bodies flowing in choreographed chaos, announcements she couldn't hear but could feel in the vibration underfoot, the electric buzz of a city that didn't sleep so much as shift gears. She liked it immediately, liked the anonymity of it, liked that no one knew her here, no one had opinions about what she should do or who she should be or how she should navigate the world with the limitations they saw, and she refused to claim. If you're new here, welcome to this channel and subscribe. Now, back to that train station and the moment everything started. The bakery sat on a narrow street in Mapogu, tucked between a coffee shop and a stationery store that sold hand-pressed notebooks Abigail would later become mildly obsessed with. The sign was simple, elegant, Korean lettering she couldn't read, and below it, smaller, in English, founded by Yoon Jae-min. She stopped on the sidewalk outside and took a photo without knowing exactly why. It just felt like the kind of moment that should be marked. Beginning of something, end of something else. Her phone buzzed in her hand, email notification, subject line, following up, head pastry chef position, London. She swiped it away without opening it. Put the phone in her bag face down, a habit she'd developed over the past 6 months, whenever her past tried to follow her into her future. Inside, the bakery smelled like butter and precision. The front counter displayed pastries arranged with the kind of care that told you someone actually gave a damn. Croissants with perfect lamination, tarts glazed to a mirror shine. cream puffs that sat like small edible clouds under soft lighting. A young guy behind the counter, early 20s, enthusiastic energy radiating off him like heat, spotted her and waved so hard he nearly knocked over a display of financiers. "Hello, hi, you are Abigail, yes, from London?" She smiled and nodded, setting down her bag, pointed to herself and signed her name out of habit before remembering he probably didn't know sign language. But he just grinned wider and typed rapidly on his phone, holding it up. "I'm Dong Hyun. Welcome. So cool you're here." 3 exclamation points and a typo. She liked him instantly. He gestured for her to follow him through a door behind the counter that led into the kitchen, and the second she stepped through, the world changed. It was immaculate. Was stainless steel gleaming under bright overhead lights. Everything in its place with the kind of order that felt less like preference and more like religion. Stations laid out with surgical precision, ovens humming at perfect temperature, and staff, 4, 5, 6 people, she counted quickly, moving through the space like they'd memorized not just the layout, but the rhythm of each other's presence. A woman about her age approached, wiping her hands on her apron, and held up her phone. "Welcome, I'm Minji. I've been learning some sign language for you." Abigail blinked, surprised, touched, and signed back. "That's really kind. Thank you." Minji's face lit up and she tried to sign back. Got Abigail's name almost right, laughed at herself, tried again. It was clumsy and sincere, and Abigail felt something in her chest loosen slightly. First warmth in a new place, first indication that maybe she wouldn't have to translate herself into something smaller to fit here. "Let me show you around," Minji typed, and started walking her through the kitchen, explaining stations, schedules, storage, when the energy in the room shifted. Not dramatically, not like everyone stopped working, just a subtle change. The way you feel a temperature drop before you consciously register it. Abigail turned. A man had entered through the back door, tall, lean, early 30s maybe, dark hair pushed back from his face, moving with the kind of economy that suggested he didn't waste a single gesture on accident. He didn't greet anyone, didn't look around. He just went straight to the central workstation, set down a bag, and began unpacking tools with methodical precision. "That's J1, Minji typed, holding the phone low so only Abigail could see. "Head baker, owner technically, he's very good, and very quiet. Don't take it personally." Abigail watched as J1 arranged his station, knife, scraper, rolling pin, everything exactly where it needed to be. Then he did something that made her stomach drop in a way she didn't expect and couldn't name. He picked up a notepad and a pen, walked to the empty station beside his, her station, she realized, and placed them on the counter. Then he looked at her. Once, direct eye contact for maybe 2 seconds, then looked away and returned to his work. Minji shifted uncomfortably. "He just means for communication." "So you can—" "I know what he means," Abigail said, her voice flat. She walked over to her station, looked down at the notepad. Standard issue, nothing special. The pen was good quality, though. Smooth writing, the kind you choose on purpose. She picked it up. "Your station. Your tools. Don't touch the temperature settings." He'd already written at the top of the first page. She stared at it. Most people in her life, she could read within 30 seconds of meeting them, could tell who saw her deafness first and her competence second, could tell who would be patronizing, who would be overly helpful, who would treat her like she was made of something fragile. She didn't know what this was. She wrote back, "Understood. Where are the flavor archives?" She slid the notepad across the counter between their stations, watched from the corner of her eye as he read it, then pointed to a shelf on the far wall without looking at her, without writing a response. Fine. She went to the shelf, started reading labels. Behind her, she felt rather than see him return to his dough, some kind of laminated pastry. She could tell by the way he was working it, the careful attention to temperature and timing. "He's not usually rude," Minji typed, appearing at her elbow. "I mean, he's not warm exactly, but I think he's nervous. You're the first resident we've had." "Resident?" Abigail typed back. Minji hesitated, glancing toward the door. "Come on. Hey, I'll show you something." They went into a small office off the main kitchen. Barely more than a closet with a desk, a filing cabinet, and a few frames on the wall. Minji pointed to one of them, a document, handwritten, official-looking. "International Pastry Residency Program Proposal," the header read. Below it, in careful handwriting that was definitely not Jae-won's, too loose, too warm, a mission statement. Someone who makes people feel like they belong the second they walk in. That's what good baking does. Let's find someone who knows that. Someone who sees differently. Someone who'll teach us as much as we teach them. At the bottom, 2 signatures, Yoon Jae-min, Yoon Jae-won. Jae-min was his younger brother, Minji typed slowly, watching Abigail's face. "He started this program. I convinced Jae-won to go in on it with him, got the funding, and did all the outreach. He died 2 years ago, illness, very sudden. Jae-won almost canceled the whole thing. But I think he felt like canceling it would be losing Jae-min twice, so he finished it. You're the first person accepted." Abigail read the proposal again. "Someone who sees differently." She looked through the glass partition back into the kitchen. Jae-won was working, head down, shoulders tight, folding dough with perfect precision, over and over, methodical, controlled, like a man keeping himself very, very busy so he didn't have to feel anything else. "He loved his brother a lot," Minji added unnecessarily. Abigail nodded slowly, put the frame back on the wall. "Thank you for telling me." When they returned to the kitchen, she checked her phone out of habit. Another email, same sender. Subject, "We'd love to make this work for you. Timeline flexible." She locked the screen, slipped it into her bag. Jae-won was still working. She watched his hands for a moment, fast, sure, no hesitation, and then went to her own station and started setting up her tools. An hour later, she was working on a laminated pastry of her own, not part of the required menu, just something to get a feel for the oven temperature, the altitude, the way flour behaved in this particular kitchen with this particular humidity when Jae-won passed behind her station. She didn't look up, didn't acknowledge him. And then his hands were on hers, just for a second. 3 seconds at most, reaching across her workspace, adjusting the angle of her fold, and fingers over hers, correcting the pressure, and then gone again. He moved past without a word, without even pausing, like it hadn't happened. She stood there staring at her dough. Most people would find that rude, presumptuous, overstepping. She didn't. He'd just spoken to her more directly than anyone had in months. In the only language that mattered in a kitchen, in the only language that didn't require her to translate herself. She adjusted her posture slightly, reset her hands on the dough, continued the fold with the correction applied. Across the kitchen, Jae-won was back at his station, working like nothing had happened. But Minji was watching both of them with an expression Abigail couldn't quite read. Something between concerned and hopeful. By the end of week 2, Abigail had settled into a routine that felt less like adjustment and more like excavation. Digging into the kitchen's rhythms, finding where she fit, where she pushed, where she could carve out space for herself without upending everything Jae-won had built. And she'd started experimenting. Little things at first, a batch of chin-chin shortbread made with Korean butter and a touch of gochugaru for heat. Suya spiced caramel that she'd drizzle over financiers if anyone was interested. And then, one morning, the thing she'd been building toward, an ogiri brown butter financier. Ogiri, fermented locust beans, West African, her mother's kitchen. The smell that meant home in a way nothing else did. Deep, earthy, funky in the way good fermentation is funky. She'd brought a jar with her from London, wrapped in 3 layers of plastic because she knew from experience that it could clear a room if it leaked in transit. She made a small batch, just enough for the staff to try if they wanted, left them at the edge of her station without announcement, without fanfare. Dong-hyun found them first, took a bite, stopped moving entirely, looked at her with wide eyes and typed on his phone with flour-covered fingers. "What is this majig?" He meant magic, she assumed, given the typo. "What is happening in my mouth right now?" She laughed, an actual laugh, sudden and surprised and completely unguarded. A few other staff members gathered around, trying them, debating in rapid Korean she couldn't follow but could read in their faces. Enjoyment, surprise, and the specific pleasure of tasting something you've never tasted before and having it work. Across the kitchen, Jae-won didn't join them. He stayed at his station, working on a tart shell, not looking over. But later, after everyone had moved on to their own work, after the small plate of financiers sat mostly empty at her station, she watched him. He glanced toward her station, paused, then when he thought no one was watching, crossed over and took one. She looked down at her work immediately, pretending she hadn't seen. Gave him privacy for whatever was about to happen. He took a bite and went completely still. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't a big reaction. Just stillness. The kind that comes when something reaches a place you didn't know was still open. His jaw tightened. Then he set the financier down carefully, stared at nothing in particular for 3 full seconds. Then he went back to his station and resumed working like nothing had happened. But Abigail had seen it, had seen the exact moment the taste hit him, had seen his face do something unguarded and raw before he locked it down again. And here's the thing she understood in that moment, the thing that mattered. She didn't push, didn't smile, didn't go over and ask if he liked it or make it into a moment. She just let it be what it was, that restraint. That understanding that some things need to be left alone to mean what they mean. That was the most important thing she did. More important than the baking itself. Later that afternoon, a note appeared on her station. What is that ingredient? The one with the depth. And his handwriting was precise, architectural. She picked up her pen. Ogiri, West African fermented locust beans. My mother's kitchen. She slid it back, watched him read it. His response came slower this time. It has grief in it. She stared at those 4 words for a long time, then wrote, "Most honest food does." He didn't respond, but he didn't leave either. They worked side by side in silence for another hour. Her on a new batch of cream puffs, him on the tart shells he'd been working. And it was the most comfortable either of them had felt in longer than they'd admit. The misunderstanding happened in week 5, and it was so stupid and so human that later, Abigail would be embarrassed at how quickly she'd retreated. She was looking at the staff schedule on the notice board, trying to figure out her shifts for the following week, when she saw her name listed repeatedly in one column. The header was in Korean. She couldn't read it, but the placement, the repetition, the way it was separated from everyone else's assignments, she read it reasonably as a restriction, as being told to stay in her lane, stop experimenting, stick to the core menu. She didn't get angry, didn't make a scene. She just went back to her station and quietly packed up her personal spices, the ogiri, the suya blend, the Scotch bonnet peppers she'd been planning to use in a caramel experiment, packed them into her bag without drama, without announcement, cleared her station of anything that said, "This is mine, this is where I'm from, this is what I bring." Minji noticed within an hour. "You okay?" she typed. "Fine," Abigail typed back. "Just simplifying." But Jaewon noticed within a morning. The next day, her station was clean, professional, efficient. She worked quietly, perfectly, making exactly what was on the menu and nothing more. He watched this for 40 minutes, then slid a note across. What changed? She showed him the schedule, pointed her name in the column, pointed to the Korean header she couldn't read. He looked at it, read what she'd read, then went to the notice board, pulled it down, brought it back, pointed to the header, then to the dates at the top of the column. Showcase week, core menu only. Everyone's name was listed under their assigned stations for showcase prep, not a restriction, just scheduling. But she'd misread it. He'd been unclear. The note he wrote next was careful. "My handwriting." She wrote back, "My assumption, clean, adults, 2 people capable of taking accountability without theater." She unpacked her spices that afternoon. He didn't comment on it. Just nodded once when he saw the ogiri jar back on her shelf. The showcase happened in week 7, and it changed something fundamental between them, though neither of them said so out loud. Abigail's menu for the tasting. Suya spiced palmiers with gochugaru finish. Chin Chin financiers with brown butter and ogiri. Dark chocolate tart with burnt honey and Scotch bonnet heat. Puff puff shoe with black sesame cream. Plantain and miso cake with toasted coconut. 5 items that were her entire identity on a plate. British training, Nigerian heritage, Korean present, all of it folded together into something that shouldn't work, and absolutely did. The customers loved it, genuinely loved it. They crowded her station, asked questions through Minji's translations, took photos, and came back for seconds. Dong-hyun hovered nearby like a proud parent, practically vibrating with second-hand pride. And then Abigail saw it happen. A customer, older, well-dressed, speaking to his companion in English, picked up one of her palmiers and said, not quietly enough, "It's impressive she can do this. You know she can't hear anything, right? How does she even know what it tastes like?" Abigail didn't hear it. She was across the room plating another round. But Minji heard it, went pale, and Jaewon heard it. His face didn't change. I didn't register anger or offense or anything readable. He just set down the tray he was holding, walked directly to the customer, and leaned in close. Whatever he said was quiet, too quiet for anyone else to hear. But the customer's face went from curious to embarrassed to mortified in about 5 seconds. He set down the palmier. made an excuse to his companion. Left early. Abigail saw the leaving part. Saw Jae-won return to his station like nothing had happened. Saw Minji watching her with an expression that said something just happened, and I don't know if I should tell you. Later, after cleanup, she asked. Minji hesitated, then signed. Slowly, still learning, he handled it. Handled what? Someone said something ignorant. He made sure they understood they were wrong. Son Abigail didn't push for details, but she thought about it that night. Thought about the fact that Jae-won, who barely spoke, who communicated in single-word notes half the time, had used his voice to defend her from something she hadn't even known she needed defending from. That night she stayed late to finish cleaning her station. She didn't need to. It was already clean. But she stayed anyway. And Jae-won came back. "Forgot something," he said, out loud, his voice quiet and lower than she expected. He pointed to his station, to nothing in particular. They cleaned adjacent stations in silence. No notes, no reason to stay. Both stayed. After 20 minutes, he wrote, "They were right to crowd your station." She read it after he left, folded the note carefully, put it in her apron pocket. "You keep it. We're halfway through now. Halfway through the part where they're still pretending this is just about baking. If you're feeling the weight of what's building here, the things neither of them is saying, the careful distance that's starting to crack, do us a favor. Hit that subscribe button. Drop a comment about what you think happens next. Share this with someone who understands what it's like to communicate in every language except the one that actually matters, because it's about to get harder. For them. For us. Stay close." The next morning, Jae-won arrived before anyone else. Early enough that the streetlights were still on outside. Early enough that the bakery felt less like a workplace and more like a held breath. Abigail was already there. This had become a pattern neither of them acknowledged. But the first one used to be him. Then it was both of them. Now it was a routine. He went to the back office, came back with the original residency proposal, Jamin's handwriting, coffee stained at the edges, folded from being carried in a pocket for months before being framed. He slid it across to her station. She looked at him. He'd already turned back to his dough. She read it slowly. Someone who makes people feel like they belong the second they walk in. That's what good baking does. She set it down gently, looked at his back as he worked, shoulders tight, movement precise, everything controlled except for the fact that he just shared the most important document in this entire building with her. Something had been given. They both knew it. That same week, Minji stayed late with Abigail to finish a batch of croissants that needed overnight lamination. They worked in comfortable silence, the kind Abigail had learned to trust, the kind that meant she didn't have to perform ease or translate her existence. Then Minji stopped, stared at her phone, typed slowly. "There's someone I've been meaning to call. I keep not doing it." Abigail read it, typed back. "What are you waiting for?" "I don't know how to say it in the right way. Maybe there isn't a right way. Maybe you just say it." Minji looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. Later, walking home, she pulled out her phone, stared at a contact name. Hae-jin. Her thumb hovered. She took a breath. Press call. Abigail didn't see that part. But she saw Minji the next morning, lighter somehow, nervous in a good way, smiling at her phone when she thought no one was looking. Week 8, late at night. Just the two of them. Abigail was trying to get a new recipe right. A honey cake with sesame and something she couldn't identify. something that kept almost working and then falling flat at the finish. She'd made 4 attempts, failed 4 times. Frustration was setting in. Flour on her face, hair falling out of the knot she'd tied it in. Tasting and adjusting and tasting again and getting nowhere. Jae-won was at his station, pretending to work on prep for tomorrow, but he was watching her, not hiding it anymore. She held out a spoon without looking at him, just extended it into the space between their stations. Tell me what it needs. He crossed over, took the spoon, tasted. Thought. Then he reached past her for the salt. And for a second his arm was around her, bracketing her against the counter, close enough that she could feel the warmth of him, smell the flour and sugar that clung to everyone who worked here, but on him smelled different somehow, specific. He adjusted the seasoning. Just a pinch, tasted again, nodded. She tasted it. He was right. Of course he was right. She wrote, "How did you know?" He looked at her. Really looked. The kind of eye contact that lasted a beat too long to be professional, and wrote, "I don't know." The space between them was suddenly very specific. His hand is still on the counter near hers. Neither moving. And then Dong-hyun appeared in the doorway like a catastrophe with legs, completely oblivious to the entire room. "Oh, sorry. I just need to check tomorrow's schedule." They both stepped back at the same time. Dong-hyun grabbed the schedule, waved, and disappeared. The moment was gone. Jae-won returned to his station. She watched him go. Hold the spoon a beat longer than necessary. The email came in week 9. "Dear Ms. Okoli, we are delighted to formally offer you the position of head pastry chef at Bellamy & Co. London. Your work has been recommended by multiple colleagues, and your recent residency in Seoul only confirms your range and vision. We are prepared to offer a generous relocation package and would be honored to have you lead our team. Please let us know your decision by the end of the month. With warmth, Bellamy and Company." She read it twice, sat with it, looked around the empty kitchen. We looked at the notepad on her station. His handwriting from earlier that day is still visible. "The salt needs adjusting. Try this." She put her phone face down, went back to work. Didn't respond. The printout fell out of her bag 3 days later. Stupid. Careless. She'd printed it to read it properly, away from the screen, and then shoved it in her bag and forgotten about it. Minji picked it up, glanced at it automatically. "Oh." Her face changed. She handed it back quickly. But Jae-won was close. He saw the letterhead, saw London, saw head pastry chef. His face did nothing. He went back to his station. That evening, he stayed late, long after everyone left, long after the ovens cooled and the lights in the front of the bakery went dark. He sat at his station, not working, not moving. He just sitting, staring at his hands. The cold happened overnight. Suddenly, his notes were single words again. Good. Adjust. No. Back to caps for emphasis. Back to architectural precision with no warmth. He stopped arriving early. The comfortable silences disappeared. When he corrected her work now, he just pointed, didn't touch, didn't linger. She noticed within half a day, wrote, "Did I do something? No, you're lying." He stared at the page, didn't respond. She stared back for a long moment, then put down her pen, went back to work. She would not chase what wasn't being offered, but she was angry. Not loud and angry, not dramatic, just angry. The kind that sits in your chest and has nowhere to go except into your hands. So she baked, hard, fast, emotional, A dark chocolate tart with burnt caramel and Scotch bonnet heat that builds slowly and then hits you in the back of the throat. It shouldn't work. The flavors were too aggressive, too sharp, too much. It worked perfectly. She left it on his station without a note, without looking at him. He ate it alone after everyone left. It tasted like exactly what it was, someone refusing to be invisible. He sat with it for a long time. And across the kitchen, tucked in a drawer, Sujin, who'd been watching this entire dance with something between resentment and recognition, filled out a tasting sheet. In the comment section, one word, good. She filed it without showing anyone. Week 11, Abigail video called her mother. The screen filled with her mother's face. Warm, familiar, the kitchen in Peckham visible behind her. The same kitchen Abigail had learned to bake in before she knew it was called baking, before she knew it was anything other than belonging. "You look tired," her mother signed. "Are you sleeping?" "I'm fine." Her mother watched her face the way only mothers can, the way that sees past fine, past the performance of okay. "Is there someone there?" Abigail's hand stopped mid-sign. "It doesn't matter. I'm coming home. Is that what you want?" Abigail didn't answer. That was the answer. "You left London because you were tired of being small," her mother signed, slow and deliberate. "You went to Seoul to be big again. Are you big there?" "I don't know. Then find out, then decide." The call ended. Abigail sat with her phone in her lap, had opened the London email, started drafting a response. "Dear Bellamy and Company, thank you for your generous offer. I am honored to—" She stopped typing, stared at the screen, didn't delete it, didn't send it, just locked her phone and sat in the quiet. The anniversary happened on a Tuesday. Abigail didn't know what day it was until she walked into the kitchen and felt it. The way the staff moved differently, quieter. The way Minji's eyes were a little red. The way even Dong Hyun's usual energy was muted. 2 years ago today, Minji typed, Jae-min. Abigail stopped. Looked across the kitchen at Jae-won. He was working, head down, perfectly controlled, maintaining. She didn't approach him. They didn't offer condolences or sympathy or any of the things people offer that mean well and land hollow. She just baked. The Ogiri financiers, the ones that had stopped him the first time, the ones that tasted like grief because all honest food does. She made a small plate, placed it at his station, walked away without looking at him. No note, no explanation, not a declaration, not a romantic gesture, just, "I see you, and I'm not looking away." That evening, everyone left. Jae-won stayed. He sat at his station. The plate of financiers in front of him, picked one up, ate it slowly, and then, quietly, without drama, without witnesses, he cried. Not collapse, not breakdown, just tears. Finally, after 2 years of keeping everything at exactly the right temperature, of folding his grief into perfectly even layers, maintaining instead of feeling, it yielded. He sat with it until it passed, wiped his face, looked at the empty plate, sat for a long time. Then he stood, went to the supply closet, got the notepad and pen he'd been using with her, sit back down, started writing, crossed something out, started again, his hand moving across the page, slow at first, then faster, filling one page, then another. He folded it, placed it on her station, left. Morning came. Abigail arrived before him for the first time in weeks, found the folded note on her station, opened it, her face reading, surprise first, then something careful, then something opens. The note. "I didn't want you to leave." and I didn't know how to say that without saying everything. Jamin wrote that proposal because I told him I was tired of working alone. I didn't know how to let people in, and he wanted to fix that. Then he was gone, and I was more alone than before. You should take the London job if it's what you want. You're good enough for it, better than good. But if you're staying because you think you have to, don't. And if you're leaving because I made you feel like there wasn't a reason to stay, I don't know how to be less careful than this. I haven't let someone matter in 2 years. I didn't mean to let you matter. You just did. If you stay, I will try. I don't know what that looks like, but I will try. If you go, I will understand. Jay. She sat down, read it again. Her hand was shaking slightly, picked up her pen. They filled a notepad that morning. Back and forth, fast, alive, the most direct they'd ever been. Why didn't you tell me how you felt before you saw the London offer? I didn't know until I thought I was losing you. You weren't losing me. You were pulling away. I know. I'm sorry. Why? Because I've lost someone before and I didn't survive it well. You're surviving. I'm maintaining. It's not the same. She stared at that line. I don't know if soul is permanent or if I'm just running. What are you running from? Somewhere I became smaller. You are not small here. She looked up. He was looking at her, holding eye contact, not looking away. She wrote one more line. Slide it across. I want to stay, not for you. For me. But also, partly for you. He read it. Something in his face, carefully, slowly, opened. That's honest. Is it honest enough? It's everything. She opened her laptop that afternoon, found the draft email to London, read it once, deleted it entirely, started fresh. Dear Bellamy and Company, thank you for your generous offer. After careful consideration, I have decided to remain in Seoul to continue my work here. I am honored by your interest and hope our paths cross again in the future. With gratitude, Abigail Okoli. She sent it, closed the laptop, sat back, breathed. She wasn't staying for him. She was staying because she'd stopped being small here, because she'd found a language that didn't require translation. Because for the first time in years, she wasn't tired. That distinction mattered. It was everything. Early morning, 3 weeks later. The bakery is not yet open, just the two of them. They worked side by side. No particular reason to speak. The silence was the comfortable kind, built over months, note by note, correction by correction, small plate by small plate. She was working on something new. He was watching her hands without pretending not to. He slid a note. What's in this one? She wrote back. Guess. He tasted it. Long pause. Then, almost, the corner of his mouth lifted. There and gone. She saw it in her peripheral vision. Didn't look directly, just looked back down at her dough, almost smiled at herself. The door chimed. Minji arrived. He saw them working side by side and said nothing. Just tied her apron and joined them. Donghyun next, too loud, too awake, carrying coffee for everyone. Soo-jin last, nodding at Abigail in passing. Brief, real. The kitchen filled. The day began. And if you've stayed with us this long, if you've felt every note, every silence, every almost moment that became a real one, then you understand what this story is actually about. It's not about baking. It's not even about love. Not really. It's about the way we learn to speak when words aren't enough. The way we let people in when we've forgotten how. The way we choose to stay when leaving would be easier. This is Afro-Korean Stories TV. Stories that don't rush. Stories that earn their endings. If this one meant something to you, subscribe. It's a comment. And tell us what language you speak when words fail. Like this video, share it with someone who needs to know that connection doesn't require perfect communication, just honest effort. We'll see you in the next story. Until then, stay. The way Abigail stayed. The way Jaewon finally let her. 2 pairs of hands working dough, side by side. Not touching, not needing to. The early light through the window. Flour in the air. The low hum of the ovens is warming. And in the space between them, all the words they had written, all the silence they'd earned, all the almost moments that had finally, carefully, become something real. Salt and silence. The whole story, start to finish, in 2 words. Salt and Silence. Written by Afro-Korean Stories TV. An original production. All characters are fictional.